Hi there, it's Hal Feldman, MiamiHal, and this is Joe Cordina.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Hal.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
We're going to roll the opening now. All right, we are really here now. You've seen the opening, and it's time to talk Pinecrest. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We have some things going on, and I think I want to preface this by basically saying the council acts together, and you happen to be the mayor, but there's a vice mayor, and there's other folks that are part of council too, right?
Yeah, the council is great. We have 5 of us on council, but a full complement of staff. So it's a good village.
And you got a village that I live in. I love it. It's a great place to be. You've got commercial areas, you've got some incredible homes, and you've got some resources for the community that are also top notch. You've got Pinecrest Gardens, right? You've got a community center. We've got parks. We've got it all.
Pinecrest has just about everything. It's one of the best places to live in entire Miami-Dade County, in the entire state of Florida. And the trick is keeping it that way.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about how any community, including Pinecrest, kind of goes from where they are now to whatever the future may hold. And there's always people that like things to stay the same. And there's the rest of us that understand there's got to be progress. There's got to be something for tomorrow and the next day and the next day, right?
Right. Well, nothing ever stays the same. Change is happening to us every single day. And in Pinecrest, our success has been we're always prepared for that change because we think about it.
Yeah.
And we just don't let it happen to us.
Did you bring your shield with you today?
Do I need one?
I don't think you need one here. But at times I see both in Pinecrest and elsewhere where people want to throw things at people that are trying to figure out what tomorrow is about.
Well, that's part of the job, Hal.
Okay.
It's why we're in the business.
So at odds and being discussed right now are some development plans that might be coming up on the US 1 corridor, correct?
Well, they're not really development plans. I think that's the first basic issue that we have. The city is not a developer, right? The city's role is to put together a land use code, which is our comprehensive plan, and a zoning code. So should development happen, it sets the rules for that development. And that's kind of what we're debating right now.
Okay. So it's a debate. It's a conversation. It is no action at the moment.
No action. Right.
Okay.
We typically go through a visioning or charrette process that we'll go through, and we'll come up with plans that meet the consensus of the community. And when we do, then we'll take some action. There's no time frame on anything that we're doing. There's necessarily no hurry. Maybe there's a little bit of a hurry in a sense that we've got extraneous issues coming in and pushing on us a little bit, but it's more important to get it right than it is to do it fast.
And you feel as if there's plenty of time to do it right at this point with good levels of conversation.
Yeah, that we have to do it right. There's no shortcut for doing it right. And Pinecrest is about quality, not quantity, and we do it right, and that takes time. And so that's the way we're going to do this one.
And separate from your role on council, your regular work life is somewhat related to what's being discussed, correct?
So yeah, I'm an urban planner.
Oh, wait a minute, you are?
Yes.
So you know more than what a typical council person would know. In fact, a significant amount more. I don't claim
I'm probably the least sharp guy on our entire council, and I'll readily admit that to all of our council people out there. But I am an urban planner, and contrary to belief, I do not work for the development community. I work for local governments, just like Pinecrest. And what I do for a living is write zoning codes, evaluate developments on zoning codes, write comprehensive plans, and look and help local governments put policy together, and a lot of transportation planning.
So you know the issue from many angles, and you can put on several hats. And they aren't conflicting hats, meaning you're not getting yourself into potentially any kind of trouble by having the background that you do. You're just simply bringing that wealth of knowledge to the role of mayor and as a council person for the benefit of Pinecrest.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard a lot about conflict of interest, but and again, I don't work for the development community. There are no developments that are being evaluated right now. There is no developer. involved. This is purely a city issue. And that's what it is. Cities put together comp plans and zoning codes. And, that's what I do for a living. So it's a great piece of expertise to bring to the village, just like a lawyer studies law, and they sit on city councils all the time to put together laws, which is what city does in ordinances and those types of things. It's really no different.
All right. So to ask very generically, because I want you to explain to our audience what this is really about, there are some potential things that would go on at 136th Street that would be interesting to Pinecrest, and then something happening around 104th Street as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let me start from the beginning.
Yeah,
So
please.
about a year ago, we started to update our US1 vision plan, which is looking at the commercial corridor from boundary to boundary, from the north to the south. And so we started to look at what we did this last time in 2012. And going into this year, since the last update, we've been focused on perhaps diversifying our housing stock. We don't really have multifamily housing in Pinecrest. We focused on upgrading the look of the shopping centers along there, along the corridor. And we did an economic analysis, found that people in Pinecrest don't necessarily shop or dine or go for entertainment in Pinecrest, creating potentially a world-class place to shop and eat, outdoor dining, and get some entertainment. So we looked at those types of things. Looking at all that was the premise of what we want to do. On the backside of it, Pinecrest had been very involved in the argument about Metro Rail or bus rapid transit. And the county had selected bus rapid transit. We want to be able to support the bus rapid transit to the extent that it fits in to the character of Pinecrest. And so that's what we started off doing. And so we ran into, along the way, we got a curveball thrown at us, and that's the county's rapid transit zone proposal. And the rapid transit zone proposal, what most people don't understand this, the rapid transit zone ordinance is an old thing coming from the 1970s. And in 2017, the county implemented it in all unincorporated areas adjacent to all transit corridors. And so in South Dade, it already exists between Dadeland and Florida City in the unincorporated areas. And what that says is around the transit stations, you have between 125 units an acre and 250 units an acre.
Much more dense than Pinecrest.
Much more dense. And at the end, in between 16 and 25 stories. And in between those stations, you have 60 units an acre for the first quarter mile and 30 units an acre the second quarter mile at 6 stories. And so this is just a strip of land a half a mile west of the US1 corridor that they put that law in place in 2017. So right now, a developer can come anywhere on the US1 corridor, apply to the county, and get a 25-story building at let's say 125 units an acre or something like that.
Wow.
So the proposal the county said was, hey, we want you to support our rapid transit corridor. So we want you to implement these rules in the municipalities.
On the east side
on
of
the
US
east side. So in Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay,
Cutler
Bay, and then Homestead, and on both sides, because Homestead's the only city with where the rapid transit corridor goes through both sides, and Florida City. And so their proposal was, you got to do all this stuff. And by the way, we will take control of the review and approval process. And so as president of the League of Cities, we got the League of Cities involved and started to push back on that idea. Said, well, that doesn't necessarily fit every city. Now, we didn't argue density as the League of Cities because every city has a different view on density. But we did argue local control. And the primary sponsor of this agreed to the cities. It's okay. The latest proposal was, we won't take your local control away from you, but you need to do something. And so that accelerated Pinecrest's process and its thinking a little bit as we went through this. So so that's kind of where we are.
So the initial proposal of taking what was right for what was west of US1 and already in place and trying to force that to the municipalities that had incorporated, that was heavy-handed. And then the response, once you got the League of Cities involved, seems to be rather rational. Let's discuss this. We want to, control what's our own destiny inside the borders of, in your case, Pinecrest.
Yeah, and I think the commissioner is doing this, is doing the right thing in a sense. The
Yeah.
county's got a ton of issues, and transportation is one of them. We're drowning in traffic, and if we don't do something about traffic, what are we going to do? Right? We're going to slowly not be able to move. So they've implemented the very first of their smart plan corridors is South Dades, and that's the bus rapid transit system. This is the first project out of, I think it's like a $6 billion multi-corridor effort to put rapid transit in Miami-Dade County. And we all knew that we would need to support. That's why Pinecrest and myself in particular were against the metro rail, because metro, you have to have population to support those types of rapid transit lines. Metro rail would have made everything along the corridor look like Dayland. We don't want 250 units an acre. We don't even want 125 units an acre. Right. So that needs to be sorted. By the way, the county's got a horrible affordable housing crisis, right? It's got
and it's only getting worse, especially with what's going on in the last year and a half of real estate.
Absolutely. It's got tremendous environmental concerns, right? And so we've got an urban development boundary that many people want to keep in place. Remember, 600,000 people are moving to Miami County in the next 15 years, right? You can't stop these people from moving to Miami-Dade County. The only question is figure out where to put them, right? And by the way, South Dade is a vast empty space when you really look at it. It's got 50% of the geographic area of the county. It's only got 25% of the population and only 12% of the jobs.
Wow.
And so when you look at those numbers, where are these people going to move? Preponderantly to South Dade. Now, where do we put them? And we need to understand that as people in the county as a whole, as we kind of look at these decisions that we're going to make.
So far, everything you're telling me, and there is a timeline to it, is very rational. So what happened recently at the last Pinecrest Council meeting where things didn't feel or sound very rational at portions of your meeting?
Well, we need to have discussions about this, right? And so as part of having the discussion, you have to bring up sensitive topics. And I have always known that touching the US 1 corridor is a sensitive topic. Even thinking about it is sensitive in and of itself. And so I think it's the right thing to have a discussion about, do we want to diversify housing stock? Do you want to have residential people? Let me go back for a second.
Sure.
The county for years in implementing its policies has always said, we want to put the future growth of Miami-Dade County, South Dade around the US 1 corridor. So they've drawn lines on both the east and west, a half a mile on each side. And when you draw that line in Pinecrest, it comes down on the estate density single family home properties. And that's unacceptable. We in Pinecrest do not want to intensify or that population in the estate dense in the single family neighborhoods. And so the thought was, why don't we put an end to this argument altogether? Let's draw the line at the backside of the commercial properties and push the residential west into the commercial properties. So we no longer have to worry about commercial intruding on residential or multifamily intruding on single family. We put it into the corridor and it's confined there. And so that's what we wanted to have a discussion about. And if you're going to have quality design, right, you have to have a discussion about height, right? And now I'm not naming any particular height, but if you want a world-class design and you want to free up open space for right-of-ways, public art, dining, then maybe flexibility on height is the thing to do. At least have that discussion. So we're capped at 4 stories right now. Can we get better design out of 6? Let's have that discussion. That's all we're doing.
And that's what happened at the last council meeting. But
that's pretty much what was. That was the premise.
But there was some noise, and if you could describe it as you saw it, because I'd love to kind of get to the core of, and it's not only the case in Pinecrest, it's everywhere. There's 2 sides to every story. And right now it seems like there's some people that are pretty upset about anything changing. And we all know progress is going to happen.
Well, like I said, things change, whether you want to or not, things change. And so are we going to sit back and ignore it and let it change us for the worse? Or are we going to plan for it, let us change, and we're going to adapt and come out more like the Pinecrest has done, which is always changing for the better. So we're simply just trying to have that conversation. What I realized in the last meeting is we're not talking about the same issue. I don't think we as a community understand what the village's role in this is. It's not a developer. We're not a developer. We're not telling uses they can stay or not stay. We don't even have developers that have even asked us about this. We need to understand what the issues of the county are, and then we need to understand local aspects of design. And though we need to reset the conversation, have those in a reasonable, rational manner, like we've always done. And when we do, we'll come up with something that's got the consensus of the community, and then we'll act on that. And we've always done that for 26 years, and we just need to do it now, and that everything will be fine.
So I'm going to ask from several different perspectives, potential homeowners in Pinecrest giving you feedback as a council member. So one person comes to you and says, listen, I want development to happen because I don't want my taxes to go up. In fact, I'd love to see if there's some way for my taxes to even go down a little bit. What will development and your plans for what this US 1 corridor looks like, what will that do to hopefully realize my goal of not seeing taxes rise and maybe
not seeing
go down?
tax increase? Well, any new development in the corridor, whether we change the plans or we don't change the plans, would be taxed. And so new development would bring additional revenues, and that would help keep the taxes balanced where they are. Now, whether you wanted to put residential in there or not, there's still a 4-story height limit of commercial and retail development that could happen in that commercial area. So, that could happen if we did nothing. And that's, they would be taxed as well.
Second homeowner comes to you and says, I've been living in Pinecrest since before it was Pinecrest. I've been here since 1962. I love my piece of land. I love my peace and quiet. And damned, I don't want anything to change at all. What can you tell somebody like that?
Things are changing whether you like it or not. Things are changing to the north of us, the south of us, the west of us, and even to the east of us. The sea level is rising. And so we need to prepare for change. And to maintain our character and our quality of life, we need to be prepared for change. We don't have to do anything we don't necessarily want to do. We just need to know what we want to do and then do it. And that's what Pinecrest has been about. Look, Pinecrest has gone through tremendous changes. When we incorporated, Dadeland barely existed, and almost all of the acre estates were tiny little homes on acre or more than 1 acre property. Yeah. And almost all of them have been redeveloped. And we had to catch up. Our zoning code had to catch up to that redevelopment, which meant we had to figure out how to change our codes so that those giant structures now fit visually into the character of the community. So that is a change that we couldn't help or not help, but it was happening, and we adapted our codes to make it work better. All of our institutions have changed. They've all redeveloped. Every one of the schools has redeveloped. They've invested millions and millions of dollars. They have waiting lists to get into. For the private schools, and the public schools are some of the best in the county. They've all changed and adapted, and we've helped them process that change. Some of them want turf fields. Some of them want tall lights on their fields. Some of them, they draw students from other places. They're no longer neighborhood schools where you could walk your kid to school. I mean, people come from all over the place. How do we deal with we've dealt with that through our processing that redevelopment. And now the US 1 corridor is poised to change, right? Shopping centers are selling. A couple of developments, particularly the Lexus, has redeveloped. And we've got an old suburban strip mall code that nobody really thinks fits the character of what Pinecrest is today. And we just need to address that code and see if we can't get it to look better, feel better, function better. And that's what this is about.
All right. I've got 2 more
make sure they're
made up homeowner questions. But before I do that, I want to remind our audience that we do have the social media channels open. And if you want to ask a question of the mayor, please get that keyboard working for us, and we will certainly pop up and answer any questions that we see. So, Joe, the next question is
keep it clean.
Yeah, yes, please keep it clean. The next question is interesting because the homeowner who's living in the northern part of Pinecrest sees a structure going up, a brand new building. I don't even know how many stories that is, about 99th Street.
Right.
And it's got to be 14 stories or more.
Yeah,
at this
14
point.
or 16. That's on the county side.
Yeah. So it's on the county side, but they're still coming to council and saying, what can you do about this? I don't want to go out in my backyard and see this looming structure above me.
It's already approved in the sense, not only is the building approved, it's under construction, but the zoning and the land use that allows it to happen in the first place is already approved.
And has been for quite a while.
And it comes from the 1970s. A lot of that's happening Dadeland. And again, this is a billions and billions of dollars worth of investment that Miami-Dade County is making in a rapid transit system. And so, look, we've asked our county commissioners, help us figure out the traffic problem. And they've come up with a $9 billion effort to figure out the traffic problem. That's rapid transit. What are we going to do? Throw that away? $300 million is invested in South Dade to put rapid transit in. And our people cannot drive to work. There will be no new, look, they wanted to put a bridge in Palmetto Bay, and that is to connect the grid. And that is an absolute community dividing nightmare. What are we going to do? Put a new road through somebody's neighborhood, right? I mean, we're going to push all these single family homes out into the Everglades. How are they going to get to work?
Understood.
Rapid transit. They have to. I mean, people don't believe in rapid transit, but that's the county's investment.
The last question comes from a homeowner who listened to the very beginning of our show and says, you're right. I live in Pinecrest, but I go for my entertainment elsewhere. And I really would like to see maybe movies or some type of activity, plus restaurants, plus some more shopping. And I don't really want to leave Pinecrest. So what is this overall project or plan going to do for me in realizing that goal?
Well, I think it makes the Pinecrest area more attractive for people that want to open a nice restaurant, right, with outdoor dining, open a movie theater or an entertainment complex, or have higher end retail, right? Right now, US 1 in Pinecrest doesn't necessarily serve the Pinecrest resident. It is primarily geared toward the driver on US 1. Remember, it was conceived of back in the 1950s when Pinecrest houses were just being built. So the retail is focused on the driver driving north every morning to get to work, and not necessarily the resident of the community. And again, Pinecresters are shopping elsewhere, in Coral Gables, in Dadeland, in Miami Beach. They're dining elsewhere, and it's just not appealing. Why can't we make an experience like that right in Pinecrest? That's what the goal would be.
And so with that goal in mind, you do have to pay attention. You're not in a vacuum. You have Coral Gables. You have the Brickell area. You have development in Cutler Bay. And so as an urban planner, now I'm asking you to put on that part of put on that hat and look at where Pinecrest is, and where do you, and I know this is a personal question, not what council is saying, but what you are looking at. What would you do to kind of have Pinecrest play nicely with the areas around it and still try to get some proper development in there?
Well, number one, we play nicely. I mean, all of the cities get along really, really well, and the elected officials are coordinating all the time, everybody in South Dade. And so, but if we got to be competitive with other communities as well. How do we attract better retail than they're going to attract in Palmetto Bay, who already has residential in their downtown, right? I think their density is like 55 units an acre, and I think their height is maybe some of it's at 7 stories, maybe dropping to 5. Cutler Bay wants 250 units an acre and 16 stories. And even Homestead and Florida City's working on it at 36 units an acre. And so there's only so much retail to go around. I mean, we don't have it in Pinecrest now. We all travel to the north. Do we want it here, or do we not? Or we want to have it go, the gravity could be attracted to Palmetto Bay or Cutler Bay, right? And so then we're still going elsewhere.
What do you feel the timing is of having this discussion turn into a true plan that can be executed upon? And again, I know that the village isn't doing any of the development, but it's going to end up welcoming developers based on what the plan is.
It would end up welcoming different types of developers. Development can still happen regardless of whether we have no time frame on it. Again, it's a quality, not quantity issue. It's the process of getting it right and having a community conversation and then developing a consensus. Now, the rapid transit zone may come and push our hand a little bit. I've heard the latest update is that something coming out of the county sooner rather than later. And I can only assume that it's the same issue. You guys do something, that you can't do nothing. If you don't do something, then we'll intercede. And what I would suspect, and I have no knowledge of this whatsoever, I'm speculating, is that if they did something like that, they would give the municipalities a bit of time to do the plan, because this doesn't happen very quickly. So I would imagine we have a period of time. So we're thinking about it and going through a process. And I can't see anybody saying, well, unless the process lasts 10 years, I think they would give us the respect to go through the process. So no time frame whatsoever, community conversations, and then figuring out when we have consensus what to do with that consensus. And then when we do, like everything else in Pinecrest, it'll have the support of the majority of the people in Pinecrest, and it'll be pretty easy to get through. But that takes planning and work.
So let's talk traffic a little bit.
Okay.
You almost had a little Freudian slip before, and I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but you almost said traffic in place of another word. Every time anybody gets on US 1, there's a good deal of traffic. And I know that there's been several attempts by the county to get lights timed so that people can move better on the US 1 corridor. And I frankly, personally don't see it.
I believe those lights have been timed, and I believe that they've eased the flow of traffic on US 1 as sped it up by as much as 10 or more percent.
Okay.
Then you've got a post-pandemic issue that we have. The TPO figures that 16% less people will go back to the office after the pandemic than were there before. That's a tremendous amount of people off of the roadway network. Remember, when school's out, that's a 5% decrease in traffic, right? And so if you can legitimately take 16% off kind of telecommuting or working from home, then that eases the traffic. And what that does, US 1's never going to get better. What happens is that people avoid US 1 and Old Cutler Road as long as possible. And so they snake through the neighborhood streets. And that's what you see in Palmetto Bay. They're constricted. Pinecrest, less so, because all of our roads go through. Eventually, because US 1 cuts across the north-south roads, people have to join the US 1 flow. So what will happen is, as the traffic volume overall gets less, US 1 will stay crowded. The neighborhood streets will get less crowded as people use US 1 corridor. And as the rapid transit line comes in, you're going to get people to use the rapid transit line, because people will use the rapid transit if it's as quick or as expensive as an automobile.
Sure.
And if you do multifamily development, residential development, it generates less traffic than commercial development by half.
Got it. We do have a question. When do you think the post-pandemic traffic will disappear?
When do you think the post-pan traffic, the traffic's just simply not going to come back to the extent that it was before?
Okay, but I think the question really is probably what I'm feeling too. There already has been like this bubble of traffic that I've felt, in particular over like the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Do you think it's more than was here before?
I think there's a bubble. Maybe it's not something that's going to stay. So maybe that's more to what the question is.
But remember, more people are moving to South Dade every day than before, right? So traffic volumes pre-pandemic 2 years ago, with 600,000 people moving here in the next 15 years, those volumes are always going to go up. That volume is never going to decrease. It's going to get worse more slowly if we do the right things.
Got it.
We're going to grow at a rate of like 42,000 people a year. We only in the last 25 years, we've been growing at a rate of 25,000 people a year. So it's significantly faster growth that we better figure out what we're going to do about it.
For sure. And that kind of leads me to my last question as we wrap up. The real estate market is ridiculously hot. Interest rates are starting to creep up. We're seeing that. You're talking about 42,000 people coming to the area, right?
600,000 over the next 15 years.
Amazing.
Miami-Dade County.
Huge number.
Right.
So this is you putting on your crystal ball. I've spoken many times on this show as to what I think. What's the next 6 months in real estate look like to you? Do we see prices increase, decrease, the volume of people buying, selling, et cetera?
Hey, look, Pinecrest is a jewel, and large lots, large homes, close to a transit line, right? Close to shopping and those types of things. I think Pinecrest is never going backwards. I think the real estate market just keeps accelerating, probably outpacing the rest of South Dade. I think we have an economic problem in the sense that how many people coming can afford these homes,
right?
But they're coming from places where they can afford them. They're coming from New York or California or Washington State, where the cost of living is much higher than it is in Miami. And as you've seen, probably they can consume those homes. And so I think middle-class Miami-Dade Countyans without homes get pushed further and further to the south and west as time goes by. And again, I think older folks in Pinecrest that are looking for a nice alternative to age in place really are going to want a multifamily type of unit nearby, which doesn't necessarily exist south of Dadeland.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not
and
yet.
I'm quite sure there's many companies, in fact, I can think of two, that are looking for land and a place to put a facility like that. Because yes, we're all getting older, and you really need to head north into Broward and even further north to find a multitude of those opportunities.
And I don't think people that have grown up and lived and raised their families in Pinecrest want to just uproot to Broward because they can't cut their lawn anymore. Well, we need to provide them an option. Yeah. That only makes sense to me.
Well, once again, the mayor of Pinecrest has joined us, schooled us on what the plans are and what's going on, and your own thoughts as to what urban planning really should be looking like in Pinecrest. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, no.
And we didn't have to talk pandemic, so that's fun. The first time we've met and didn't talk COVID.
In quite a long time.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I almost can't wait till we go back to COVID.
No, you don't. That's an awful thing to say.
In terms of the conversation.
Okay.
Have you been reading the internet recently?
And for those of you that are following us and the many videos we've done, you're still welcome in our pool.
I think I'll be over.
Until next week, have a great week. If you need something in real estate, get in touch with me, Joe Cordino. Your cell phone number for those people that want to get in touch with you.
Get me 305-606-2364. Well, I'm always available, as is the rest of our council. We're here to serve.
Thank you very much.